Muhammad al-Fayed. In fact, the biggest controlled conspiracy theory was made by the intelligence services through Muhammad al-Fayed. The conspiracy that led every single one of the writers and the investigators to the same result, that it was nothing more than an unproven murder. Years have been spent arguing over whether Diana was killed because she was to marry a Muslim and carry his child. This man has very close ties with the Persian Gulf's dictators and world's presidents. From the Sultan of Brunei to Jacques Chirac, the French president at the time of Diana's accident, and the one who had once urged François Mitterrand to give al-Fayed a high position in the Legion d'honneur, which is an order established by Napoleon in 1802. It is described as the order that is more elite than the Masons, for those who have contributed to the glory of France. His ex-wife's Khashoggi family were, and still are, servants to the Saudi regime. From the grandfather, Dr. Mohammed Khashoggi, who was the private doctor to King Abdulaziz Al Saud, to the grandsons who just sing the praises over everything the royals do, even when it comes to justifying all the wrongdoings that are inflicted on the people. Muhammad al-Fayed entered Diana's life at a time when she was not only lonely, but when she was, as has been mentioned, planning to go to Palestine. Also, just when she started to gather information in a report she called Profiting Out of Misery about what she had discovered while campaigning against landmines. She was thus directly threatened by her ex-husband's friend, the Minister of State for the Armed Forces, who said to her, "You never know when an accident is going to happen." Of course he denied the whole thing. Diana went far, to the extent that she spoke to the Clintons in the White House to ask that America ban any landmine dealings, which is something that did not please the military-industrial complex. Yes, Bill Clinton promised her that he would do it, but just less than 3 months later she disappeared. I stress the word disappeared. And a couple of weeks after the accident he retreated, and the USA did not participate in the ban of landmines. Just search the internet for Clinton body count or Clinton's disappearing friends and you will be amazed. Actually, both writers John Morgan and John King wrote about the Clintons' involvement in Diana's accident through the CIA. It was when they saw Diana's influence on the American president that they started to work with the MI6 on plans to get rid of her. Muhammad al-Fayed is a very suspicious character to me. He was there and involved with royal life and with Diana's family, but he never was very close to her until after these two major causes were on her mind. I stress, though, that there is more evidence about the issue of landmines than that of Palestine, which came out via the two ex-intelligence agents David Shayler and Annie Machin. When we think about what she was going to do concerning these two causes, and then consider all the American, the British and the French intelligence officers who were present in Paris, in addition to Muhammad's relations with the Israelis via the Mossad and the arms dealers, especially the Saudis, since the uncle and the step-uncle of his son Adnan Khashoggi and Hassan Yassin were among them. When we think of the fact that she was under al-Fayed's security, which consisted of men from the SAS, the British Special Air Service, and think of the Ritz Hotel, where the princess stayed on her last night, as the nest for this combination of vile groups, we can clearly see that Diana was entrapped in a managed stage. These groups were not there to kill her. They didn't need all to be present if the goal was just to kill the princess. The plan held a more sinister goal. It was a satanic ritual according to some, and an abduction, and not a murder according to my research. Creeping around Diana. Let me describe some of what Muhammad al-Fayed had done to prepare the stage for Diana's entry into his nest. In 1986, he bought Villa Windsor in Paris, which was occupied by the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. He turned the villa into a museum. But a few months before the accident in May 1997, he decided to turn the villa into a private home. Later, after the accident, this villa was used a lot in his stories about how Diana and Dodi were planning to live in it, and how they were designing a room with an Italian designer named Ardo Grassi for his grandchild by Diana, and how they spent 2 hours there on August 30th, the day before the accident. In fact, the CCTV cameras proved that this was not true at all. Yes, they both visited the villa, but only for half an hour, and a witness named Ben Murrell, a security guard for al-Fayed, told of how the story about Diana's plan to live with Dodi there had been fabricated. I say that the whole action of turning the museum into a private house had been planned from the start, in order to set the stage for the rumor about the marriage and the pregnancy. Here, some will say that Fayed did this in May 1997 and he invited Diana to spend a summer holiday with his family on July 3, and she did not meet Dodi until the 14th of July, therefore he could not have made up this scheme. Well, let us see what John King, the writer of Princess Diana The Evidence, said on Radio Red Ice on February 10, 2014. He had been told by a man called Robert Lacey, an agent in the intelligence community who dealt with the SAS, of a premeditated 18-month-old plan to kill Diana. 2 weeks before anything happened, he had been told that there was going to be an elimination of a personality bigger than John F. Kennedy. The question is, why would they expose this to him? Were they genuine whistleblowers or fakes? Was this done in order to implant the idea of a murder and nothing else? Was this a way to control the mind of the public after the accident so as to think only of murder? Was this known to Muhammad Al-Fayed one way or another without it being clear to him that his son might be a victim? Was he also manipulated in order to attract Diana into his world? Well, for me, after reading and researching, I say yes. And that is why he is the one who took on his shoulders the murder theory, and that is why he can slander the Queen and her family openly and at every opportunity. I wonder about what I read in Death of a Goddess regarding Al-Fayed's office in his ex-store Harrods, where he kept a picture of the Queen. Would you put a lovely photo of your enemy on your desk or wall amongst the photos of your family? Another house was involved in setting up the plan. This time it was Julie Andrews' Californian house. In 1995, Diana had a brochure of this house as she was dreaming about living in America. It was just a dream and a piece of paper. There was no real active plan that she would leave her children and go alone. The young princes are not allowed to leave England permanently, of which she must have been aware. But how convenient for the whole staging of the plan drawn up by the intelligence community that Muhammad Al-Fayed had bought the house in June 1997, just a couple of months prior to the accident. The question on my mind is, why would Muhammad Al-Fayed prepare 2 houses as the homes Diana was going to move to with his son? Why did Dodi tell Frank Klein, the Ritz Hotel president, over the phone from the yacht Jonical, when Diana was with him, that she was moving out of England? Who was he to think like this and plan the whole thing, unless all this intelligence setup made him feel that he somehow was in possession of her fate? Even the motor yacht Jonical, which Diana enjoyed being on with the Al-Fayed family during that holiday in St. Tropez, had been bought only a month previously. This was in addition to the availability of a divorced young man just like her to be attracted to. Concerning Dodi's attendance at St. Tropez, from reading about the young man's character, I can see clearly that he was an obedient son to his father. He met Diana on July 14, and they supposedly fell in love in no time. This was only a month and a half before they were both in the Mercedes that crushed their lives in Paris. The great love story that has been portrayed to us is very much mixed in with lies. Yes, I think Diana liked him, but not to the degree of carrying his child from first sight and marrying him. This talk is clearly exaggerated, as are many other details in the story. Dodi was engaged to the American model Kelly Fisher and was with her all the time. But he told her that his father had called for him to attend to some business in London, and she later discovered that he had gone to Paris to be with Diana under his father's command. Now, if the love story had not been planned, why didn't he tell his fiancée the truth about his whereabouts? It is as if he knew that this thing with Diana was just business, and that he must obey his father. What was he afraid of about his journey to St. Tropez, if there wasn't a secret intention of some kind? He went with the flow. He was a playboy who surely would never let a woman like Diana slip from his hands. He was the right personality to seduce her into Muhammad's nest. People still say that he was going to present her with a wedding ring on the night of the crash, and instantly believe that the story about marriage was true, and therefore Muhammad's talk about pregnancy was plausible. Well, it is not plausible for me, as it has been proven that when Dodi visited the Alberto Repassi jewelry store near the Ritz, where Diana was staying, he came out empty-handed. And when it was later discovered that the whole story about Dodi himself taking the ring with him was a lie by Claude Roulette, who worked for Al-Fayed in the Ritz Hotel as the president's deputy, CCTV footage proved a second visit by him alone to the store again. This time, however, he claimed that he took several rings back to the hotel for Dodi to choose from. But we do not have any proof that he really took the rings to Dodi, except for a receipt that was signed by Roulette and not Dodi. Then again, there is a long story about how Dodi chose the right ring and how he tried to get a discount on it. We only have Roulette's word for this. Now, why would we believe that a real purchase had been made by Dodi himself? There is no proof that Roulette took the rings to him, except for the receipt, and the CCTV footage does not show a clear photo showing him carrying the rings with him. Not even one. The truth is Dodi did not find what he was looking for, but Roulette and Ripasi lied a lot in their testimonies as proven in the book, How They Murdered Princess Diana. According to author John Morgan, both lied, and he confirms that Claude Roulette was an intelligence agent. Maybe now you might think, okay, what difference does it make whether Dodi took the ring by himself or it was taken later by Roulette to be delivered to Dodi at the hotel? The answer is that neither of them collected anything. Roulette, the agent, just signed a receipt that had been written out by another liar, according to Morgan. This receipt was created to fake the evidence and pretend that the ring, which is displayed in Harrods, was a real engagement ring. It was so the public would buy into the theory that this was the reason Diana was murdered, and for the case to only be thought of as murder. If they lied about every tiny detail in such a way, it means every tiny detail was described in order to fabricate something and distract from what had really occurred. The ring had not been given to Dodi, and he did not really give it to Diana, because the criminals who planned the whole thing wanted it to be in other people's hands so they could make sure it would be displayed for the public and not be lost in the accident. They put whatever ring they liked and presented it in the details of the story and in the Harrods show box as if it was evidence of the love and bond of marriage that was destined to be. So, how did the ring appear later on in the scene? It is said that it was Dodi's butler, René Delorme, who found the ring the day after the accident on the August 31 in Dodi's apartment in Paris. René said that he saw the ring on the night of the accident, while Dodi was telling him to prepare the champagne for he was going to propose to Diana. Of course, nothing of the alleged plan actually happened, for only a few hours later, the car crash occurred. Thus we only have Delorme's word about the ring being in Dodi's apartment. And who collected the ring after the accident? It was Mohammed Al-Fayed himself who took the ring. The man responsible for the whole murder conspiracy, because of a marriage and pregnancy that could not have been true at all, according to some clues I will mention later. Actually, René Delorme is another character who makes me think about the number of fabricated lies in the setup. I'm not saying he knew everything and knew there would be an accident, no. But he knew his part very well, as did others in the plan drawn for them by the intelligence agencies. The alleged engagement ring was supposedly chosen by Diana and Dodi before their visit to Paris. Delorme told the inquest that he saw the couple go into an Alberto Ripasi's store in Monte Carlo on August 5, and during the visit everyone concluded that Diana liked the ring. Dodi therefore wanted to surprise her with it after collecting it in Paris. The first sign of a lie here is in the testimony of Dodi's bodyguard John Johnson, who was with the couple and Delorme, and who said that he does not remember this ever happening, and if they had stopped outside of a jewelry store then it would only have been for a few seconds. The other thing is the allegation made by Delorme that he saw Dodi proposing to Diana, while on one knee in front of her caressing her tummy, and her saying yes, but Delorme did not hear her say, "Yes, I will marry you," or "Yes, I will go to the Ritz." At the very least, this is a totally laughable story. Why would Dodi caress her tummy in order for her to go with him to the Ritz? And why would he caress her tummy if it was a proposal, since there could not have been a pregnancy? And since Dodi was so close to his butler who had left his family to live with Dodi all the time and told him about the ring, why did not he tell him about a more important issue such as a pregnancy? Evidence against the hypothesis of a pregnancy. According to the doctors Bruno Rioux and Elaine Pavey, the two doctors who treated Diana, the Paget report stated that no pregnancy test had been undertaken at the hospital in Paris. Paul Burrell, Diana's butler, said she had not been pregnant. Also, her close friend Lucia Fletcher de Lima said that a pregnancy would not be visible until the 4th month. And since she had been with Al-Fayed for only a month and a half prior to the incident, it was not possible, not that quickly anyway. In addition, in relation to the photos published of her belly bulge, Lucia said the princess had always been so. In short, it was a natural condition, just as for any human being. Dr. Peter Wheeler, who was competent to prescribe medications for the princess, had never said she was pregnant. Moreover, she contacted him prior to the incident on August 20 or 21 and said nothing about a pregnancy. Also, according to information from other doctors, she had been taking birth control pills. Burton said that he heard Diana's doctor, Dr. Wheeler, telling another doctor, in the morgue, about a contraceptive pill she took to prevent any possibility of pregnancy. Dr. Wheeler says the princess consulted him about breakthrough bleeding. Hair samples that were taken during the autopsy in London by Dr. Robert Chapman were compared, 9 years later, with a spot of blood on the carpet of the car, which was described as heavy and 17.5 centimeters by 7 centimeters in size. The DNA of the hair matched that of the blood from the carpet. Also, there is a reference to the fact that an HCG examination on the blood from the carpet proved that she was not pregnant. The first official allegation reported from a party related to the case about pregnancy as the reason for the killing and the rapid embalming was in the newspaper The Daily Express in 2001, based on the claims by Muhammad Al-Fayed. It is very striking that this controversial issue was not considered a reality until after the passage of more than 3 years from the incident in 1997. It means that all the talk and the investigations about pregnancy was after the emergence of Al-Fayed's claim in 2001. And then when the Paget report was completed in 2006, it turns out that important parts were included only as a response to Al-Fayed's claim on this issue. Cohen's book Death of a Goddess mentions a story about how the French news magazine Paris Match obtained notes supposedly from the hospital, which proved the existence of a pregnancy. Soon the magazine discovered that they were only forgeries made in Spain. Now, isn't that a desperate move? Moreover, even if Al-Fayed or anyone else made this claim before 2001, the evidence contradicts that it is a possibility. Al-Fayed even showed a picture of the princess with a stomach bump as evidence of a pregnancy, and then it was discovered that it was taken before the commencement of Diana's relationship with Jody. Both the allegation made by Muhammad Al-Fayed in the media that Diana was pregnant, as well as the Paget report's efforts to respond to a false claim, contributed to the loss of quite a different truth from public opinion. The following is some of what has been written in the books and raises suspicion that the pregnancy issue was only brought up to confuse public opinion. Health Minister Bernard Kouchner and an organization that took care of every hospital in Paris refused to comment on the subject of pregnancy, on whether there had been a test for it or not. The Fulham mortuary denied doing any pregnancy test on the grounds that it was not important in the case. However, there is also a denial of any possibility of a pregnancy by the Paget report. The question is, how was it denied if the morgue did not do a test in the first place? Also, the Paget report states there was evidence that the princess was not pregnant, but the evidence is very private, and no details were given. The report only says the conclusion is based on the words of friends, without further explanation. Dr. John Burton at the Fulham morgue said that all of a sudden Dr. Robert Chapman said loudly during performing the autopsy, and not to anyone in particular in the room, "Let's see if she is pregnant." Burton said that he does not know why Chapman said this and to who. Dr. Robert Thompson, who assisted Dr. Chapman, said that he wondered why comments were made by Robert Chapman on the issue of pregnancy suddenly during the autopsy, although there was no reason for it. My comment here about Chapman's behavior is that he was actually, as we will see later, performing an autopsy on another woman's body, and his remarks were made only to implant the idea of pregnancy. All this was a mind game. And on to what John McNamara said about the pregnancy being in its first phase. I do not believe that the pregnancy, whether it was true and in its first phase, could have been known about by the intelligence agencies even before the child's mother herself knew about it. Moreover, it was impossible for the pregnancy to be seen by the alleged opening of the womb. Therefore, how was its existence known about by the intelligence agencies? This is unreasonable. Diana would have to be sure of any pregnancy through the passage of time. The issue then could have been known to the intelligence agencies through her words to her doctor about a pregnancy, or to a friend or a family member, which is something that simply did not happen. All of the above, including the medical evidence mentioned, indicates that Diana was not pregnant at the time. And in spite of her falling into Al-Fayed's trap, when you study her character, it does not reflect the character of a woman who would tolerate a conception in that situation. The aim of raising the issue of pregnancy was to influence public opinion in the case of a permanent debate. If people thought she had been murdered, Because she was pregnant, they would already believe she was certainly dead. I mean, what I see is that the narrative of pregnancy will make people believe that a murder was committed and believe that this is the reason for embalming without regard to any other possibility.